in Georgia could have uniquely painful consequences for the former president's effort to reclaim the White House. Now, this is according to 4 Republican strategists with experience in state politics. Donald Trump, who is twice impeached and now 4 times indicted, show how what was once unprecedented has now become surreally routine. Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff to the president, seeks to move Fulton County election interference case to federal court. Meadows argues that the charges against him pertain to actions he took while he was serving in the Trump administration. From America's mayor to criminal defendant, Rudolph Giuliani's long tumble is the subject of many news articles. An indictment in the Georgia election conspiracy case marked perhaps the lowest point in the career of Giuliani, who had staked his legacy on blind allegiance to the Trump administration. The state of Oklahoma declines to discuss a settlement of the Tulsa Race Massacre survivors' lawsuit. The Oklahoma Supreme Court, however, has agreed to consider the survivors' appeal, and the state attorney general's litigation division has filed its response to that appeal. As the start of the school year approaches in Florida, some teachers say chaos and confusion have marked the days leading up to reopening as they navigate how to teach under new state policies. Teachers say they are going into classrooms less confident about their lessons plans, confused about changes to state laws, and on high alert that once benign instructions could now get them fired or charged with felonies. And Sean Tuohy is refuting Michael Oher's allegation that the Tuohy family tricked the NFL star who inspired The Blind Side into a conservatorship instead of adopting him. Allegations that Tuohy finds insulting. Tuohy told the newspaper that the 2004 legal arrangement had nothing to do with the movie or profits from the movie. He alleges that the NCAA told him that if Oher wanted to attend Tuohy's alma mater, Ole Miss, he would need to be considered part of the family because of the Tuohy's booster status at the University of Mississippi. Well, the Arkansas Education Department is barring students from receiving credit for AP African American Studies classes. Under a new statute, the Arkansas Department of Education is now required to identify any items that may purposely or otherwise promote teaching that would indoctrinate students with ideologies such as critical race theory, otherwise known as CRT, that conflict with the principle of equal protection under the law. And today, the New Jersey Supreme Court ruled in favor of a Catholic school. The court ruled that religious entities could use religious exceptions of state employment law as an affirmative defense in facing claims of employment discrimination. And it was an uncontroverted fact that the school followed the Catholic Church's religious tenets in terminating a teacher who got pregnant in violation of what the court says were the terms of her employment agreement. And a federal appeals court panel said today that it would impose restrictions on the abortion pill mifepristone that would prevent the drug from being prescribed by telemedicine or dispensed through the mail. But the decision, the latest development in a closely watched lawsuit filed by abortion opponents seeking to block access to the abortion pills, will not take effect until the Supreme Court ultimately decides the case. You are listening and watching Areva Martin in real time, and I am your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by 2 of my favorite contributors and brilliant commentators. Jamarr Brown, he's the former executive director of the Texas Democratic Party, and he is a Democratic strategist. Also joining me is Dr. Raphael Sonenshein. He is the executive director of the John Randolph Haynes and Dora Haynes Foundation. And in hour 2 today, that's the hour where we go behind the headlines of the biggest stories of the day. Some of these stories make big headlines, others have big impact. Well, today, the biggest story of the news has been for the last 48 hours, the Georgia indictment of Donald Trump. We have two legal experts joining us in hour two who are going to help us break down the RICO indictment and charges in the 98-page indictment filed by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, asking the question in hour two, has Donald Trump finally met his match in this African-American female district attorney who has a track record of using RICO to bring down teachers who she charged in a cheating scam, and even using RICO against rappers? Fani Willis has a track record of successfully prosecuting some folks who otherwise would be difficult to prosecute. I'm going to talk to our legal experts and help you make sense of all of these legal terms, because if you've been watching cable news lately or even just scrolling on your social media sites, you have probably come across lots of words that are taught in the first and second year of law school, and everybody is getting a good introduction to criminal law 101. Lots of questions, lots of confusions about what is going to happen to the president. Depending on what cable news station you watch, Donald Trump may have met his match, but others say this is just a trumped up weaponization of our legal system. Those experts are going to help us make sense of the indictment. But before I bring up my guests, here's what I'm thinking in real time. I want to give a big shout out to Florida activists who are standing up. If you listen and watch this show regularly, when I have my Florida contributors on, I'm always asking them, what is Florida doing to push back on Ron DeSantis and the extremism that we see in the policies that have been enacted by DeSantis? Well, I got the answer to that question today because dozens of teachers, students, and labor leaders marched to a Miami school district headquarters today to protest Florida's new standards for teaching Black history, which have come under intense criticism for what they say about slavery. The protesters who marched to the school board of Miami-Dade County objected to this new curriculum and the standards that, among other things, requires teachers to instruct middle school students that enslaved people develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. So I just want to say bravo to those activists. Keep standing up, keep speaking out, and keep marching and resisting the extremism coming out of Florida as a result of the failing presidential candidate, Governor Ron DeSantis, who obviously is trying to leverage the extremism that he has implemented in Florida as he tries to vie for the presidential nominee by the Republican Party. It's not working in his presidential campaign, and today is evidence that those failed policies are also not resonating with the teachers and students and labor leaders in Florida. So again, bravo to those activists. When we come forward, more of today's trending news with my expert contributors right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Don't touch that dial.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580. You're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby? I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation.
We are back and we are tracking today's trending news with my expert contributors who are joining me to help us all make sense of this news. Jamarr Brown is back. He is the former executive director of the Texas Democratic Party and a Democratic strategist. And Dr. Raphael Sonenshein, who is the executive director of the John Randolph Haynes and Dora Haynes Foundation, is also joining me in this hour. And of course, Jamarr and Rafe, as you are affectionately known, the biggest story for the last 48 hours has been this sprawling indictment in Georgia of former President Donald Trump. And in hour two, as I promised, I got two of the brightest criminal defense and criminal legal minds in the country who are going to help us break down what that means. But I want to talk to the two of you as political animals, and I say that affectionately, political junkies. What, if anything, does this mean? Because we saw the former lieutenant governor of Georgia come out and just denounce Trump, saying the party needs to move away from him. We saw the governor of Georgia come out and say, no doubt about it, there was no stealing of the election in his state. And you have some strategists saying, although Trump is up right now, that this constant chaos and this constant news cycle is going to be detrimental to him in a state like Georgia and other swing states like Philadelphia and others, Michigan, where he needs to win. People are going to say, enough of the chaos. What do you make of that, Rafe?
Well, it hasn't happened so far. Basically, no matter what the chaos is, he survives in the Republican Party. His great strength is not the nation, it's his party. And his party is still behind him. There'll be a lot of complaining. Things could go south. He could lose 10, 15% among Republicans, 20%, and still far be ahead of whoever else is running. Plus, they're working on the rules in the various states of how delegates are selected, including California, to his advantage to see if he can just make it a rout early on. There's going to be a debate, I think, in the next few days, right around the time that he reports, not long around the different from that time. Who do you think the media is going to cover? You think they're going to cover his showing up in court or the Republican debate without Donald Trump? In that party, he's still the dominant force. I mean, it would take a lot to change that.
Well, Jamarr, he being Donald Trump is saying he may show up at the debate, the first Republican debate that's put on by Fox News next week on the 23rd. And you're right, on the 25th is the day that he has to turn himself in. Let's use the legal language here. He has to turn himself in because he's been indicted. And if he were anyone else other than who he is, which is so ironic about this, because a friend of mine reminded me, who worked on Wall Street, that Rudy Giuliani had become famous in New York of going on the floor, the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange and some of the biggest investment banking houses, when he would indict these white collar investment guys using the RICO statute. He wouldn't have them turn themselves in. He would have FBI agents, he would have, law enforcement show up on the trading floor, put handcuffs on these guys, and make them do this walk to embarrass and humiliate them. So Fani hasn't done that, could have done that, obviously. But what do you think, Jamarr? Does Trump, he is showing up on Friday the 25th, and he's going to be processed like any other defendant that has been charged in a criminal case. But do you think he shows up 2 days earlier at the debate?
I think he absolutely shows up 2 days earlier, to what Rafe just mentioned, right? That he has still been seen as someone who is leading the Republican Party. Yes, you've had folks like the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia come out and say, we need to move on. You've had people like John Huntsman come out and say, we need to move on. You've had several senators. It's still not enough. And there's still a base that Trump has built in the party where he still has a hold on the party. And so I think that if in his front runner status, he's going to show up to that particular debate because he wants to maintain that status. But he's also got to be ready to answer some of those questions. And we'll see what from the other candidates. Are they going to hold his feet to the fire, not only about the issues, but even just about the chaos, about the indictments, right? About the lack of leadership, the lack of character. Are they willing, even 2 days before, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, other folks, Ron DeSantis? Let's see how that goes. But I do think he shows up. Trump likes a show.
Yeah, Rafe. So we can imagine that Chris Christie, who has made the cutoff for the debate, I don't think Asa Hutchinson has made it as of yet. We don't know. We'll find out, I guess, by the end of the week. But Chris Christie will be on that stage. And Chris Christie happens to be polling pretty well right now in New Hampshire. So if anybody's going to go after Trump, it's going to be Chris Christie. What do you predict the others are going to say? Are they going to just say, oh, my God, yes, the U.S. Justice Department and every state Justice Department has been weaponized against our poor, fellow opponent here. And if I'm president, they're going to look him in the eye and say, I'm going to pardon you, Trump. Don't worry. I'm your man. I'm your woman. How do we handle this on the debate stage? Because he's going to be, sucking up all the oxygen. We know that.
And how do we know that he won't go and turn himself in on the 23rd, right around the same time as the debate, which basically wipes out the debate? He does not want to give Chris Christie oxygen. He doesn't have to worry about any of these other people. He doesn't have to worry that Christie's going to beat him. He has to worry that Chris Christie is not afraid of him and has nothing to lose at this point of his career. He's got no base of support anywhere in the country that anybody can see. He's the most dangerous thing to go into a heavyweight boxing match, a challenger who has nothing to lose against the champ. And he's going to swing hard. And I think Trump would do a lot to keep Christie from being the story that night. But being on the stage with him may not be the best way to do that, because he's never faced a Republican who isn't afraid of him. So I don't know quite how that, I'm from New Jersey, so I recognize all these people, these characters, Christie from Jersey, Trump from New York. It's all about dominance.
Yeah, all that
Trump is about dominance and
male toxicity, that masculine, bravado that we're going to see. You're right, though. Trump has never faced anyone like Chris Christie, because let's remind folks, Chris Christie was a lackey himself during the last Trump presidency. It is just recently that he has started attacking Trump, and he's been pretty consistent. And he's a former prosecutor, so he knows what it's like to prosecute. He knows what RICO is. He knows the seriousness of these charges. And he could be the most damaged, although, like you said, he's not going to win points with the MAGA base, but he could embarrass Trump. He could put him on the defensive, and he could make him look pretty bad on that debate stage. So Trump does have to weigh that. Does he want to give Chris Christie, as you said, that much oxygen? Jamarr, okay, how does America's mayor go from that to RICO indicted defendant to broke, having to throw himself literally on the mercy of the court about his financial problems? Because his loyalty and fealty to Donald Trump didn't pay off. Trump would not pay him for the work that he did. So now he's having to sell his apartment in New York. He's got not only legal fees for this criminal case, and this is one criminal case. He could be indicted in that federal case that Jack Smith has, those 6 unnamed co-conspirators. We know Giuliani is one of those co-conspirators. And he's got a civil lawsuit where he just had to admit that he lied about some information. So he's going to be facing a big civil judgment. What happened to Rudy?
Well, I think this is a case of sell your soul to the devil, unfortunately. I mean, Donald Trump really led people to believe that he was going to put them in a position of power. That, if he ascended to the presidency, they believed that they were going to gain power. They were going to gain money, right? They were going to gain all of these things. And now Donald Trump's not the president. Now Donald Trump has as much access as he did when he made all of those promises to those folks. And I think that's part of how you got here. And they were all willing to do these things. What the thing I find amazing is that, you look at Michael Cohen, you look at Mark Meadows, you look at Rudy Giuliani, how all of them were willing to do things that they know were against the law. And Rudy Giuliani, like you said, he's been in the legal field for so long. And so watching how they were able to do that is really appalling, quite frankly, because, at the end of the day, they're willing to do whatever Donald Trump told them because they thought he would ascend them to power. And now he's not the president. He can't deliver on all those things. And now they've got to face the things in court. And Donald Trump has also got his own legal battle. So he really probably doesn't have as much legal arm to extend to support them in this case.
Yeah, you're right. Giuliani's a former prosecutor. He used RICO. He was bragging yesterday saying, he created RICO and this is an improper use of it. That was his statement yesterday. But it still is baffling to me, Rafe. The 18 lackeys that were indicted in Georgia with Trump, many of them are lawyers and not all of them are fringe. I mean, Sidney Powell, yes, fringe. But Eastman was a professor at a very credible law school right here in California. So this was not some, again, a fringe lawyer. Now, I read Giuliani was struggling financially after that failed presidential run. He was broke. His campaign was $3.5 million in debt. He was struggling for relevancy. And that's how he kind of got entangled with Donald Trump to begin with. Donald Trump threw him some kind of bone. And so when Donald Trump needed his help, he was there for him. But again, as you said, Jamarr, trying to situate himself next to what he thought would be the seat of power and maintain his relevancy. But Rafe, you got that 18, quite a cast of characters, including this publicist for Kanye West, who is so dumb that she's in a police station shaking down or trying to pressure a poll worker while an officer is recording her with a body camera. I think the biggest part of this story, in addition to, the unprecedented nature of having a president indicted and 91 criminal charges filed against him in totality, is the number of people that were willing to go down with him.
They never thought they were going to go down. They thought they were going to be with him. And the thing is that this man has a kind of amazing ability to tell people that he's the center of the universe and will never fail. And if they can just stay within 100 yards of him, they will be as powerful and successful as he is. And if he lost the election, well, it got stolen. We'll be back in no time. And by the way, I've got a fantastic plan to get us back in, and you're going to be right there in the Oval Office. He used to run the Oval Office like people could just walk in and out. People just wandered into the Oval Office to say hi to Trump. So he had this sort of emperor model, and I think people were willing, but the giveaway should have always been you don't get paid. We live in kind of a world where we don't want to do things we don't get paid for, right? I mean, we've all kind of learned that growing up the hard way. These folks, he doesn't pay them, but he says, don't worry, you're going to have access to the greatest power on the universe, which is me. And you can be nearby me, but I'm not going to pay you. And by the way, you may get a large legal bill. It's too bad. I'll help you out if you stay loyal and say the right thing. Look, I have no theory of why people would do this to themselves, except there is some centrifugal force he operates on people that he can never fail. He's just a super successful. He's a perfect winner. That's the image he sold his whole career very successfully.
Well, I think there's a colloquial term for that, Rafe, and it's called con artist. He's a con artist.
That's
yeah, it's 3-card Molly. You're from Newark and New Jersey and New York. You've seen it. You see it on the street corners every day. He was the best of the best at conning people, and now he has his own mounting legal bills that he can't pay, so he has to keep conning his base to keep giving money to pay those bills, and he's cutting folks loose. And look at all the lawyers that are on these various cases. There's never been a consistent set of lawyers, because the lawyers that represent him that think they're going to become powerful end up dejected and broke because he doesn't pay them. Then he moves on to a new set. When we come forward, we're going to talk about, Michael Orr and what the Tuohys are saying, fighting back, and the abortion case that has the vice president fired up. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation in scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search.
We are back, and in this hour, we are breaking down today's trending news with my expert contributors, Jamarr Brown and Dr. Raphael Sonenshein. And in hour 2, we are going to take you to law school. Yes, we are going to break down the 4th indictment of Donald Trump. We're going to define all of those terms that many of you have never heard. Going to help you understand what the chances are of the prosecutors getting convictions, not just against Donald Trump, but against the 18 other individuals named in this sprawling, unprecedented indictment of our former president and many in his inner circle. We're going to talk about that RICO statute that's being used by the Fulton County District Attorney. Many folks may have heard of RICO with respect to mob cases or even drug-related cases. How is that statute in Georgia being used to prosecute a former would-be president? Stay with us for hour 2. All right, Rafe, I assume you're a football fan, and now that's just, it's a gender-based assumption.
I'm sorry, but it's true.
Okay, well, good. So now I don't feel as bad. What is up with this Michael Orr Tui story? So much of it doesn't make sense to me because Michael basically is saying the Tuohys took advantage of me. I was young. They had me sign a document. I thought I was adopted by them. I wasn't adopted. They became conservators, which allowed them to make decisions about the use of my name, likeness, and image, to sign contracts on my behalf. They did so with respect to this blockbuster movie, The Blind Side, and presumably other contracts. And you have Tui saying, we are shocked by this. We love Michael. Also, by the way, Mr. Tui said, I sold a business and made $200 million, so I don't need Michael's money. I'm already rich. And that Michael Oher has been trying to shake the family down. I think I read something says he'd been trying to get $15 million from the family for at least the last couple of years. He said other lawyers. And so now it's a bunch of, allegations against each other. And it's hard to make sense of this story. What do you make of it?
Well, as a football fan, I don't think very deeply about things involving sports. I just enjoy them. But this one seems to have some significant pieces in it. This was an incredibly popular movie. And let's face it, it was a really well done and entertaining movie. There's no way around it, especially if you like sports. It's a real feel-good movie. Something seems to have happened recently. In other words, some information came to light that may have led to this that we don't know enough about. It's a pretty big question whether he was adopted or not. And I don't know the answer to it. The last thing I would do is jump into this intense family dispute. It makes the movie a little bit different, if that's in question. It sort of changes the narrative just a bit. It also leads to questions about inheritance, which is obviously a huge factor. So this is one where this could all be determined on a fairly factual basis. I think that this may be one of those few cases where you can actually test out the allegations in a factual manner. But I think something happened recently that got this going, and maybe it was a revelation or an allegation or something. But anyway, it's a strange story, although the movie does have some strange elements to it. Let's face it. It's wildly entertaining, and there's a little bit of suspension of disbelief when you're watching the movie that everything was as
perfect as it appeared to be.
But
yeah.
I'm not going to judge because I'm going to wait and see what the facts are.
Well, you're right about this. One of the things that Michael Oher has asked for in his petition to terminate the conservatorship that the Tuohys have over him is an accounting. So he's, the Tuohys will have to lay out in full detail financial records demonstrating what they received from the movie The Blind Side and many other, if there were other deals that they signed as conservators of Michael Oher. One thing, Jamarr, though, Michael Oher has said now and apparently has said in the past was that he didn't like the way he was portrayed in the movie. He said he was portrayed as kind of this slow, intellectually slow, I should say, not physically slow because he was a great football player, but as someone who was intellectually slow, maybe had some kind of intellectual or learning disability. And he said that plagued him in the league, that his coaches thought he wasn't as capable as others. And even though, as Rafe said, maybe there's some new revelation, but Michael Oher seems to suggest that he's never felt good about the movie that on the surface looked like here's this kid in this really rough situation with a mom who's addicted to drugs, gets adopted by this white wealthy family, goes on to play college football, goes on to the NFL, the dreams of many young kids growing up in poor communities. But what do you make of Michael saying, I'm not crazy about being portrayed as the poor kid that needed to be saved by the white family?
Yeah, well, I think that, if they had the conservatorship, I think it depends on what they signed in that deal, right? And some of those pieces that come up, because a lot of pieces when you sign up, for example, for a movie deal, how much creative control do you have, right? And a lot of that may or may not have played a part. And then to your point about him maybe having some intellectual challenges, it's been a running stereotype of athletes to not be the most intellectual. Whether that's true or not, that's another question, right? But it's been a long-term thing, also as well. And then the last piece is, if he is in this place where he's saying, I don't want to be portrayed as the woe is me kid that needed help, that's a real question that we have to start talking about in adoption in the broader sense, right? Because at the end of the day, most times there are children who are not with their parents, but they do need a home. But they don't need a home because they're victims. They need a home because they need to learn and grow and thrive and have all that support. And so I think that this sort of situation kind of covers a few topics in our society that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I think for me as a lawyer and a mother, a couple of pieces to the story, and you're right, we need to get the facts, and the facts will come out because there will be discovery and there'll be depositions, and the written documents, the contracts that were signed will come out. I think anyone would be troubled by the use of conservatorship, because conservatorships are normally used when individuals are disabled, when they're incapable of making decisions for themselves, maybe because they were born with a particular developmental or intellectual disability, or maybe because they had a car accident, a serious car accident, and as a result of that accident, they had a brain injury. So, the famous conservatorship was, Paris Hilton, right? Who was conserved for many years because of what they thought was erratic behavior. So I as a lawyer, I'm sitting here thinking, being poor obviously is not a reason to be conserved. Even making poor decisions isn't a reason to be conserved. So I think the Tui family does have to give a better explanation as to why they had Michael at that time, who was young, sign such a significant document that gave them so much control over him, and a document that, according to what we're hearing in the press, was supposed to be terminated when he turned 25, which has gone on well past the age of 25. So lots of unknown pieces to this story. But one takeaway is, if you are conserving someone or getting someone to sign away their legal rights to make decisions for themselves, and they are giving them to you, you better make sure that that is buttoned up very, 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 very tightly, because, yeah, thank you, my producer. I said Paris Hilton. I'm sorry, Paris is Britney Spears. Correction. Paris is fine. I'm sorry, Paris is Britney Spears. But you better make sure that all of your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, because you could find yourself in a similar situation, having to come back and have to explain to a court why you have exerted that kind of significant legal control over someone. So this story, obviously, lots of more moving parts to it, pieces we will continue to follow. When we come forward, we'll talk about the vice president, who has issued a scathing response to this Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals decision to limit access to abortion medication. Now, it doesn't end access to the medication today because of the Supreme Court's ultimate authority to make decisions about it. But it is a significant victory for those who oppose abortions. When we come forward, we're going to talk about that and other breaking stories right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Gifted and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow Follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a red spot. Shot with a red spot. Shot with a red spot.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out.
All right, we are back, and Jamarr Brown is joining us, as well as Dr. Raphael Sonenshein. And the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has decided that there should be a restriction on doctors' ability to use telemedicine and telehealth to prescribe abortion pills, specifically the mifepristone medication. And the vice president is not happy. She has been a very, very vocal proponent of women's reproductive health rights and freedoms. And she has been out around the country really speaking out against efforts to limit the use of mifepristone and other efforts that can provide medical care to women who are pregnant. And she issued a press release immediately today after that decision came down. And here's a part of what she said. She said, "We strongly disagree with today's decision from the Fifth Circuit in Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine versus FDA, which would impose medically unnecessary barriers to safe and effective FDA-approved medication. Despite this ruling, mifepristone remains broadly available due to the Supreme Court's stay. As I have continuously said, this lawsuit is a threat to a woman's freedom to make decisions about her own body and another step towards the ultimate goal of a nationwide abortion ban." Rafe, why are Republicans continuing to push on the issue of abortion bans in light of what happened in Ohio last week, in light of the polls that show that the majority of Americans support some access to abortion care? They lost on this issue in the midterms last year. Why do they continue with this failed political strategy?
Well, I think for a minority of Republicans, this is a fundamental issue. It's beyond politics. And they don't think about what it's going to do to their party. They don't think about elections. They believe they are right on this, that this is what really has to happen. Now, for Republican politicians, there's a state of panic about this because they can read the surveys, and it's not a fundamental issue for a lot of Republicans even, let alone Democrats. The Fifth Circuit is very conservative. This is a 3-judge panel that is all conservative justices. This is going to go to the Supreme Court. Now, the question I'd ask about the Supreme Court, where I'm not sure these are deeply held beliefs by the justices, they're going to be faced with another Roe versus Wade, not quite as big or clear as Roe versus Wade, but do you step in the ring and get yourself smacked around one more time in an election year? This is probably not a case they really would like to take on very much. Their instinct is to hurt federal agencies, especially under Democratic presidents. And this is an FDA case about FDA approval. But I think the Republican Party is really worried about this. And by the way, this role for Kamala Harris has really made her a visible vice president in the Democratic Party. And it's not just this issue. She's going out and talking about racial issues. She's talking about the slavery curricula and all these issues. And I think it's going to really bolster her role in the Democratic Party, which has been lagging very badly for quite a while. I think this is not a bad role for vice presidents in a re-election year, by the way. It's not the job of the president to do that. It's the job of the vice president. And she's got that prosecutorial history. She knows how to do it.
Yeah, I was with the vice president on Saturday at an event in Martha's Vineyard, and I had a chance not only to talk with her, but to talk to some of her staff. And some of the polling numbers coming out, as you said, has become more visible on issues of reproductive autonomy, gun safety, racial issues, attacks on Black history, climate change, climate issues, it's sending her poll numbers amongst key Democratic voters in the stratosphere. And again, those being white, educated female voters, younger voters. And she talked about how in the next quarter, we're going to see a lot more of the the vice president, than we probably see of the president. They are going to deploy her on college campuses. She's going to be continuing to appear at some of the largest conferences that are happening throughout the nation. And she's going to be that voice that is fighting back against extremism. And so far, she has been doing a phenomenal job, and she's been getting a lot of positive press for the work that she's doing. She's finally found her voice. Well, I won't say she's always had her voice, but the administration has allowed her now to use her very effective voice. And Jamarr, she is, again, immediately issued this press release fighting back about this Fifth Circuit Court of opinion. And as Rafe said, this isn't just about abortion rights. This Supreme Court said, let the states decide it, basically saying we don't want any more abortion cases. We're done with abortion. We've overturned Roe v. Wade. States decided. Now they're being forced to decide if the FDA, that federal agency that decides what medications all of us can take, whether they should undermine a determination by the FDA that this medication is safe. And if it's safe, then doctors should be able to prescribe it using telehealth, telemedicine, however they choose to. What do you think happens with this case? And how does this help the Democrats moving forward if the Republicans continue to be held hostage to this small, super extremist part of their base?
Well, Reva, I think that what you see here is, right, this case is not just about abortion and what you think about abortion and abortion access. You're talking about a group of people who filed a lawsuit in a state like Texas that typically has more right-leaning judges, and then they want to work to undermine the FDA. Now, these judges, as far as I know, are not medical experts, right? They're supposed to just rule on the law, right? And what that means. And so I think that that's the interesting thing you see about this case is typically we haven't seen the FDA be challenged in this way, right? That it's gone this far. Not just in states where we're looking at abortion bans, we're looking at other restrictions. You're seeing actual federal agencies that have actually used science and approved medication for people, that being questioned in the court of law. And I think that that's an interesting piece. Now, what we saw just last week in Ohio, right, where issue 1 was voted down, we're seeing an uprising, not only of Democrats, quite frankly, but of Republican suburban women who are starting to rise up against the Republican Party, because at the end of the day, this isn't just about your decision to whether to pursue or access an abortion or not. We've seen clear attacks by Republican extremists on people's fundamental freedoms, right? Whether it's the right to choose, the right to vote, even the right to be safe, to exist in your own communities. And so I think that you're seeing Democrats, you're seeing us rise up in our demographics to say, no, hold on. Enough is enough of you restricting my rights, my right to choose, my right to live, my right to, thrive in the way that I believe I should. And now it's about the president and the vice president making sure that they continue to consistently engage these communities. It's great that the vice president is traveling, speaking to various college campuses, going to various conferences that represent, for example, she was at the Delta Sigma Theta convention. She went to the NAACP convention last week. She just spoke at the Gun Violence Summit. She's going to have to continue to do those things. And I believe that we're seeing her rise and her voice now in this case, one, because the administration is allowing it, but also two, she is the highest ranked woman ever elected in this country. She has a unique voice and a lived experience that she can talk about reproductive rights and abortion access in a way that no president or vice president, quite frankly, in our history has been able to. And I think that's what people are starting to see. Now she's stepping into her own and saying, yes, I'm a woman of color, but I'm the vice president of the United States. These issues matter to you. They matter to me. And I'm going to use my voice and my platform at every turn to do that and build real relationships to be able to leverage that.
Yeah,
and so I think that that's what you're seeing. No,
absolutely. Like I said, she's doing an outstanding job, and people are cheering and really supporting what she's doing. Mm-hmm. Rafe, the Republican Party for years has been the small government party, the party that says, keep the big federal government out of your business and even keep the state government out of your business. And now in Arkansas, they can't go forward with an AP course for African American studies because of a new law passed, signed by Sarah Huckabee, that basically says this teaching of this class is indoctrinating students with ideologies such as critical race theory that, according to this law, conflicts with the principle of equal protection under the law. So we have Republican states, Texas, Florida, now Arkansas, getting in the business of literally on a granular level dictating what can be taught in schools and denying kids. Florida, last week it was psychology AP courses. Now Arkansas, it's African-American AP courses. We're going to end up with some pretty dumb people graduating from high school because of these Republicans. Won't let them take AP courses. What is going on with these Republicans? Why are they so afraid of people getting some knowledge?
By the way, I've given up on calling for consistency in politics, so I'm just going to let that one go to the side. This is really a battle over education, history, knowledge, and how our society is dividing along the lines of people who want to read and learn and people who are worried about that and think that that's worrisome. And then you add that to understand the history of slavery and the history of race in the United States would affect everything that happens today. Every decision today would change depending on one's attitude about history, which is a kind of a strange thing to say since we always say we don't care about history. Clearly, they care about history in that to allow people to know more about history would actually change a lot of things today. So this is really about race, history, education, power, and politics, and really not about the role of government. This is
the thinking obviously is the less people know, the more we can control them, which is why everybody needs to be learning and reading, and learning is, educating yourself as much as possible, because that way you can make informed decisions. We are out of time. Thank you so much, Jamarr Brown and Dr. Raphael Sonenshein. Always a pleasure to spend some time with you. When we come forward in hour 2 of Areva Martin in Real Time, we are going to take you to law school and help break down the 4th indictment of Donald Trump and help you make sense of all of those words that lawyers use that can sometimes be confusing. I have 2 of the nation's leading criminal law experts joining me. Make sure you stick around. When we come forward, KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The 3 people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis